Because President Cohen is not feeling very well, we want to go ahead and let her have a brief discussion on updates to the conditions, because I believe she is going to excuse herself as soon as she can.
Go home and
That's
lie
a
down.
rest. And then we'll pick up everything else right after that.
Okay, so you don't even want to do minutes or anything first, or?
No, we'll go ahead and have our discussion with you.
Okay. So, I want to just talk for a couple of minutes about conditions, or share what I know, and a little bit about board members and characteristics that you asked about, the matrix and the sort of characteristics I was looking for and at. So the conditions, the conversation is ongoing. I've been on the phone with President Davies at Eastern, and Jim Middleton, who is the member of the State Board of Higher Education, who is the sort of in charge of working with us on the conditions. He's the community college president, representative on the state board. And I think we've made a lot of progress. It's all financial, as I thought it would be, with check-in dates. And it's interesting because now that Vice Chancellor Jay Kenton has been named to be the interim president at Eastern, suddenly he's all over these conditions and has a lot of financial thoughts, which are very helpful, sort of a different hat than he's had on previously. But I think one of the breakthroughs that we've had was that the financial analyses would be looking at trends. That is, rather than a hard and fast number, so that if you were, where they tell us that if you're at this percentage of fund balance or this percentage of debt ratio or something, then you're in trouble. This would be working on, you're progressing, you're looking better. And so it's really looking at long-term viability, financial viability, with various check-ins. And again, I don't know where we'll end up. Actually, interestingly, for us and for Eastern, we have our 7-year accreditation review in 2017, which is a massive review. That's like the big deal review. And so that will probably be one of the check-ins. And I was pushing for 2020 to be the next review, the next big review, because that would be 5 years from when the board would start in 2015. But what we're hearing, you get these rumors from the governor's office that he'd sort of like to get this taken care of while he's still in office. And so I think the next check-in may be 2019, not 2020. But it's still good. It's still a reasonable set of years, I think, for us to be working toward viability. So we're still in discussion. Jim Middleton is running some of these ideas by the governor's office, and so we're on track. And I think it'll get resolved in a timely fashion. So I'll talk about board membership in a minute, unless people have questions about the conditions. Not that I can answer much, because I don't know much more than that. Yes.
So, one quick question is, where do you see Western and East, or sorry, Southern and Eastern, if we go together, what do you see us submitting that material to the Oregon State Board of Higher Education for approval prior to going to the governor? Is there a deadline date that?
There's only the 45 days that is the whole process that includes the governor. And so what Jim is doing is, by running it by the governor's office right now, we're getting any signals that, no, this is unacceptable, or yeah, this looks good. And so I think it's going to be kind of an iterative process, and we'll get it done by the end of April. End of May, sorry. Yeah. Because we want it, yeah, we have to get it done within that time period in toto, the whole governor bid. So I think we're on track, and I think it'll be fine. I would like us to have check-ins, for instance, if we were doing really well in 2017 and that first big check-in, the thought would be that they might just lift the conditions at that point, and we'd just be like the other small universities, or like all the universities. So So that, if we were making progress like that, then they could just end the conditions. But again, we will see what feedback we get from the vendors.
Mary,
Yeah.
what date are we on now?
I'm not sure. I didn't bring my little timeline with me, but I know that in the original timeline, we wanted to have something pretty much done Friday, this last Friday, which is when we had a big conversation with our board rep. And so, and now he's running it by the governor's office, so I think we're in pretty good shape for getting this done by the end of the month.
Thank you.
So moving on to just a few things about the board membership. I did want to just share one thing with you, that this is from, there are lots and lots of documents out there about sort of the qualities that one should be looking for in a really good board member. And this was a nice list that would really make sense for everybody, for faculty, students, staff, as well as the non-SOU board members, just sort of overall desirable qualifications that if you're going through your process, you might want to look at these, as I will be as I go through my process. But in terms of sort of general characteristics that are more specific for SOU, these ones I'm handing out are more personal, I guess. But in terms of the kind of things that I'm looking for, is first of all, I want to be talking to people who are passionate about higher education, that they understand our mission, that they want to work with us and understand, who our students are and what we're doing here. It would be very helpful if at least some of our board members have influence at the statewide or national level. We need influence, we need advocacy. I would like to see, one or more of our board members have some kind of previous relationship with the university, that is an alum, a parent of a student, some, friend or former employee, or someone who understands us and has had a relationship with us. Somebody who can, another quality I'm looking for, certainly someone who can be a leader, someone who has been involved, has been on boards in the past. That would be significant. This shouldn't be their first board. This is a pretty important board. Someone who really understands fiduciary responsibilities. We will have to have a top-notch finance team, finance committee on this board. Somebody should understand sort of the business, finance, real estate transactions, et cetera, those kinds of financial expertise. People need to be physically available to come to board meetings, and they have to be here. This is the major point of this, is that we're gonna have a board that is present for us. We're definitely going to have ethnic, gender, geographic diversity, and the governor's gonna be looking for that. And then we have to have people who don't have any conflicts of interest. That is, they can't be on OIT's board, for instance. So, we have to look at that as another criterion. So those are the kinds of things for a mix, we don't have that many people. So it's, it will be an interesting exercise, but we have to have a range of skills and a range of backgrounds, and we have to have a lot of commitment to who we are as a university. And so those are my thoughts at this point in time. Questions?
All right. Thank you very much, President Coleman.
Okay.
We hope that you have a smooth recovery.
Thank you. I'll sign in and leave.
Actually, you're not here long enough, so you can't sign.
Okay,
I'm just
I'm not here.
kidding.
You never saw me. It's not my full name. Thank you.
As far as announcements go, passing around the Committee on Committees' current roster setup for the fall academic 14-15 year. Two issues. Number one is please distribute this amongst your colleagues as far as who you represent, and try and beat the bushes in order to get these populated so that we're not trying to hunt and peck as we begin into the fall, kind of like what we did this year. And the second issue related to Committee on Committees is that both Stephen Jessup and Robin Stringfeld are done on Senate as of the end of this year. And we would certainly like to get a couple of individuals onto the Committee on Committees from Senate, and it would be nice, although you don't have to, because it doesn't technically start until June 2nd and then the beginning of next year, but it would be nice, to kind of get some history exchange between the two individuals who have basically done this for quite a few years to the next group of individuals who will be doing it on the Committee on Committees. If you have any questions about the responsibilities or amount of work involved with Committee on Committees, certainly speak to either Steve or Bob. Other than that, I don't have any other announcements. Does anybody else have any announcements? All right then, the approval of the minutes from 4/7 and 4/21. Sent these out last week for review. Was there or are there now any edits or comments? Vicki?
Yes, on the 4/21 minutes, the spell check called them zip codes and they're SIP codes.
Oh, wait,
Fantastic.
what's that?
Zip codes for CIP.
CIP, okay.
And
I would
that's
change
on
mine.
page.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I had that listed as one of my own notes, but fantastic. Any other edits or comments on these two? I'd certainly entertain a motion to approve the two sets of minutes. All right. Which one?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
The other one will second it.
All right, Vicki,
Okay.
seconded by Mary Russell Miller. Thank you very much. Any other discussion
good.
about these 2 minutes? All right, then, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you very much. I hope that Dina Dowling would be here to talk about SOAR, but he's not here yet, or he might not show up. But SOAR does kick off next week. There's been quite a few emails about SOAR and all of the events, but it was really nice to hear him in executive council last week as far as his passion to talk about SOAR. That's what I was wanting to have him here for today. So maybe we'll table that if he shows up a little bit later. If not, then we'll go ahead and have the ASSOU report. Is that good? And who wants to start, or is it both of you, just one?
Mine's quick.
All right.
So Tommy and I developed an application for students for the student seat on the iBoard, and we will be sending that out tomorrow. And secondly, elections are starting for ASSOU, so campaigning is going to start next week, and it'll be 2 weeks, and then voting will be the last week in May. All right.
Yeah, so just kind of a little bit of an update. We did our voter registration drive for spring term. Went incredibly well. We surpassed our goal. Our goal was 800, and I believe we got 826. 56, excuse me. So we surpassed our goal, which was good. We registered 20,000 students statewide, which was the largest voter registration drive not only in Jackson County, but also on the entire state. So it went really well. So we're transitioning now into our next phase of things, which is to get out the vote and voter education, which means that unfortunately, I'm sure for some of you, most of you, we have to do a few more class wraps. And the focus of these class wraps are going to be more on voter education, so we're going to be focusing mostly on explaining what the voter pamphlet is, how through that you can access information on who's running for office, what some of the ballot measures are going to be, as well as educating students on, once they get their ballot, what things that they need to fill out. And that means not specifically, yeses or nos on specific things, but more understanding what the positions are, what ballot measures are up, and what kind of effect that'll have on not only our community, on students, and just in general participation as a whole by students. So Tufts University actually did a study. They found that 73% of students that registered at SOU 2 years ago actually turned out to vote, which is different than many of the public officials that we have who say that SOU students don't turn out to vote. Well, this data backs up and says no, actually 73% of us actually did turn out and vote once we registered. So I'm going to pass this around. Go ahead and take your time up with it. Just put your name, what class would be okay for us to visit to kind of explain some of these details to students. It'd be great for us as an organization to be able to carry this forward because I'm sure you've heard this before. What it really allows us to do is do things like what we did this year, which is going up to the Capitol and getting more funding for this university. We can't do that if we can't demonstrate that our students care about these issues, and so this helps us do that. So I'll pass this around. If you could fill it out, that'd be greatly appreciated, and then I'm sure you'll be hearing from me shortly. So, that's it.
Thanks, Dale.
Yeah.
Questions for SSU? Thank you.
How are you reaching the online student?
Right. So that's a tough thing for us because it's hard for us to, other than we can send out emails to a lot of the students in there once the professors allow us to do that, but it's hard because I'm sure, as most of you know, a lot of students don't really check their emails, especially when they're headlined with very generic things. They just kind of, oh, SU student affairs or right, whatever. Okay, just bump it over. It's not important. It's not for the professor. So it's hard for us to really kind of reach out directly to those students. So what we try to do is communicate with professors that have online classes, try and allow us access to that information so that we can get out and communicate to those students. But other than that, a lot of our focus is trying to reach students that are in classes here because that's really what's most accessible for us.
So would it be feasible for us to have some kind of an announcement that, we, using Moodle, we could send out an announcement to the class to direct students where to go if they'd like more information, so at least we know that they received it in that venue? I mean, would that support your?
Yeah, that would be fantastic because it's one thing, and it goes back to the whole, just trashing emails that you get. It's one thing to get it from student government or student groups on campus. It's another to get it from your professor. So yeah, any aid you can lend in that and explaining to people, hey, if you would like to get involved or you'd like to register to vote or you'd like to have more information on what's going to be on the ballot, to reach out to ASSU.
So if you could provide us with something that we might say,
Okay.
and then that would be really helpful. And then I just recommend if you're able to, or reach out to the colleagues at the Medford campus so that those students don't get overloaded.
Right, yeah, we definitely have had a large effort out there at the HEC. We've had tabling out there and voter registration in their classes, class wraps and stuff like that out in Medford. The hard part is definitely the online students, but yeah, I'll shoot out an email. What do you think? Do you think it'd be better to send it out to this body here, maybe department chairs, or do you think maybe just all professors in general, just let your students know? Any suggestions?
Do them all.
Yeah, just do them all.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just have, it sounds, I'm totally supportive of your efforts, but it sounds to me like what you want to discuss in the classroom is going to entail far more than just, time-wise, in terms of when you came into my classroom and did voter registration. Right. And I'm not going to be able to commit with that because of just time constraints and what I want to do in my classroom. So are there any other options you're going to have for students? Are you going to have some meetings, general meetings, and if that's a part of it, maybe that could go into this same verbiage that we could send out to them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the best way to do that is to direct students to our, we're going to have a debate. And
Good.
A debate mostly on the ballot measures. So
Right.
the ballot measures, we're going to be doing
good.
a debate on that
Good.
coming up here at the end of the spring term. And then in fall, we're going to be doing candidate debates as well. So it'd be a great way, instead of us
Good.
coming in and spending 20
Yeah,
minutes
I
trying
mean,
to go through
It'd
everything.
be hard, yeah,
Right,
because you
right.
should have more time than that, yeah.
Right, absolutely. And any encouragement that you can give to your students to show up to
Exactly.
those debates would be fantastic.
Good.
We're going to have people from both sides, opposition and pro, for each of the issues, and then in addition to the candidates as well for local office and gubernatorial as well. We're working on trying to get a gubernatorial debate. It's hard to get the governor to come down here. luckily Richardson's just next door, but we gotta track him down because he's all over the state right now. But that's our main goal right now. So anything you can do to encourage students to show up to that would be fantastic. It would really help us a lot. So,
Great.
yeah. Also, I'll send out an email for all that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Dennis?
Yeah, well, as you're talking, I'm thinking of ideas for you, so I might have 3 or 4. One is that, if you have this debate with students or have other people on campus, you could archive that debate, Ustream kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that then you could tell students to go there if they want to. They can't make the debate in person, but they could get the information from that event.
Something like with Cornell West, which we did.
Right.
Live stream
Mhm.
simply.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very easy to, well, it's possible, it's not always easy to arrange.
Right.
The other thing is, are you using social media, Facebook and things like that to broadcast your intentions on information of issues?
Yeah, absolutely. So through the ASSU page, we've definitely been keeping on top of our whole getting out and registering students to vote. And now that we're transitioning to the get out the vote and voter education, we're going to start adapting that for our social media so that we start talking more about the issues and trying to do that in a very nonpartisan way, which it's a challenge, but it's not impossible. So
Right.
we're definitely looking at those
Pro,
avenues.
con, or, a website. I was thinking, like, along with what Mary was saying, that if you came into the class and gave a little promotion, and then you say, go to this website, we'll have all the information that we would like to take 10 or 15 minutes on, and you can read about it right there on the ASSO
Yeah.
website.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you build it one time, you get all your heads together,
Get them all going in the same direction.
and
Yeah.
then you can just promote your website.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rose Conley?
I don't have anything to report. We're spending most of our time these days budget-related items, course planners, all that kind of stuff. So kudos to the office staff that have been really burning the midnight oil, literally, to get it all done. Any questions? Yeah, all right.
I know this happens often, where promotion, tenure decisions possibly.
I just finished them today, so they've just got to be proofread, run off, and uploaded.
Congratulations. All right, no questions? The next item for discussion and information is the Carpenter 2 grant awards. Set those out in the agenda material over the weekends. Any additional comments or discussions? Instead of Anne, we have Amy Bosworth here to talk to us about this today.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ann Connor on the Faculty Development Committee. So we just finished our awards. We received grant requests from 28 people, which totaled $17,907. But we could only award 8, a little less than half. We came to distribution decisions by ranking candidates' applications on 4 categories: benefits to the degree program, department, and SOU, competence of the application, validity of the budget, and if the person had received the Carpenter 2 grant in the last 5 years. So each member of the committee ranked each candidate, and then we had an average of all of them, and then we awarded the top 22, so 6 people were not funded. Is there any questions about that process?
Didn't the Carpenter grants 1 and 2 both total to $25,000? And then to like $12,500 for one and $12,500 for the other, or is that just some?
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
Well,
I was gonna say, wasn't the funding for Carpenter 1 and Carpenter 2, $25,000? And then, $12,500 for one, Carpenter 1 grants, $12,500 for the Carpenter 2?
I have to check on that, Elizabeth, I'm not sure, we treat them we don't
Yeah,
total
yeah. I
the,
just thought when I applied for the other one,
yeah.
that was the total number, so.
was just curious.
Yeah,
what
Penny
those 8
keeps
points-
track of all the budgeting for that, so I can certainly get back to Dave with a response.
Any other questions about the Project 2 grants going forward? Alright. Well, if there is no suggestion to amend the two rule to approve these, then these will be as an action item next week. Okay. Thank you very much, Wayne. All right, the next item up is a discussion about the faculty nominations for faculty rep on our I-board. So because there are no specific plans or instructions outlined, the process, although not vague, is still kind of ultimately up to the governor. As President Coleman and I have discussed a couple of times now, it is up to us, as far as the faculty, to try and figure out how we want to go putting names forward as far as for the ultimate nomination by the governor. And we can certainly sit here and discuss who we think are eligible or good candidates, or we can simply go back to our constituents and ask. Ideally, somewhere between 7 to 11 nominees, as far as the total number of names going forward to the governor, who would then pick from that list of 7 to 11 names. If you have any particular pieces of insight, feel free to summon. Carol.
It would be if, if we are gonna go to our other faculty and ask, I would feel much more comfortable understanding better what the commitment of that person could be.
Okay.
So I don't really, in my head, I don't really know what that means. What kind of time commitment, responsibilities, what's, you know, what's in general expected of a board member. I assume, I know it's, what is it, a 2-year term? Is it 2 years? I don't even know that. I can't remember.
I believe for the faculty, it is a 2-year term that is renewable one
Okay,
time.
right.
So total 4
So,
years.
you know, I don't know if they're thinking of meeting how frequently and any, yeah. So, any additional information before we go and ask people, do you wanna do this?
Right,
Would
okay.
be helpful.
Any other suggestions, comments?
So is that kind of what we're gonna do, is go to our faculty and
It's
is that?
really up to us to make a decision about
Right.
this, how we wanna go about doing it, because it's never been done before,
Mhm.
because we've
Right.
never had an I-board
Mhm.
before. So it really is, it is up to us how we go about creating that list of names. I do believe we need to get that list together and submit it to President Coleman around the June 2nd meeting. So that she would like to have them around the end of May, beginning of June, so that they can go forward. It's not under the same timeline as the conditions
Okay,
in order
right.
for us to have a board,
Right.
but we want to have this in place sometime in June,
Mhm.
so that that person is selected along the same time as the student person is, and then the staff member person, and, because each of these bodies are creating a group
Right.
of names. Kevin and Vicky.
I was just gonna say, I think, from my perspective, the best thing to do would be to take some sort of vote. You know, when you say 7 to 11 names, that's, I'm not sure we're gonna find 11 people that want the job.
Sure, no,
So
it's
it's almost,
right, there's a possibility we might get 4 names.
yeah, so I guess my suggestion would be to just open up, send out an all-campus email, get nominations, and then if
Okay.
there are more than we wanna deal with, do a vote. Say we're gonna pick 9, and we take the top 9, or whatever it is.
All right. Yeah, I mean, the pitfall of, if we only have, 1 or 2 names, the governor could say, no, I don't want either of those. And so,
But I mean, if that's all we have, that's all we have.
right,
We
no,
can't
that
force
is
people to
very
do
true.
it.
Vicky and then Pete.
Yeah, there's, one alternative I've seen done with many boards is that you actually fill out an application to express your interest. And I wouldn't wanna make it burdensome, but it would be helpful to know what role this person's played in the governance at some point at the university, and a number of other things, that we just might want to be mindful of.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna, say a statement of interest would be a good thing. It'd also be, if we could, when we send out the email, if we could give our best guess at the set of responsibilities and time commitments that are required, and then ask for a statement of interest, perhaps address Vicky's concerns there. governance positions.
Right, just to clarify, we don't have to make that decision today about this whole process. I'm just trying to get us started on this because
Right.
there is some timeliness in it. So if we can get this process started, go through this material, I'll try and provide as much feedback as I can, further questions, and then, kind of try and create some symmetry across these different suggestions. And then we can go forward on it next time. Mary Ann, that's it.
I actually would prefer to take this to my faculty on, like in a departmental meeting, just simply because I think a lot gets lost in the translation in an email. And to be able to sit down and just have this discussion and go over, like, this is the application, and be able to, be as informed as I can be, I think that might promote more people to really seriously consider it. That's my own personal, so I'd rather see it that way.
But if we can get some of this information, then disseminate it through your constituents.
Exactly. That would be my
To
preference.
get a better idea of the time commitment, you may want to call Emily Pleck at Western. She's our small representative on the current OUS board, so she can probably give you a much better idea. That way you wouldn't be just sort of making it up, but I think it would be very similar. You just wouldn't have to travel so far.
Sure. Okay. All right, any other issues, Kevin, and then Vicki?
Well, just to speak to what Mary was saying, I agree that the ideal would be for us to have this communication in person with our faculty, have a discussion. I'd like to see both occur, because I've heard from some people on campus that they don't get the feedback from their faculty senator that they need, so.
So both would be good.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Vicki?
I don't know how we might go about this, but it seems like release time might be, need to see that word, because I know we need to cut back, but it may be appropriate if the responsibilities are such that it would impede people from applying. And I don't know whether that'd be something we would do through APSU, whether we do it through the Senate. But I think that there will need to be some allowance made, because this isn't going to be a light task.
Okay. I can certainly ask Emily Fleck about that as well. So, great, any other questions or comments? All right, we'll get started on this, and we'll give you all some feedback as soon as I get some material collated together, and then we can move forward on it, so that we can try and have at least a set of names to the president, so that they can go forward to the governor sometime in June. Fantastic. Okay, the next issue are Senate seats. So we started this discussion a couple of months ago in terms of the academic reorganization and the potential for the realignment of Senate. Again, this is just throwing it out there because of the possibility of overrepresentation and underrepresentation across the division. Jamie and I sat down last week and kind of went through those numbers as far as how well the distribution of Senate seats fits across those divisions. So again, it's not something we have to decide upon today, but certainly something to consider as far as how well the representation is across the actual divisions. Because some programs, while they are parts of other programs right now under the new academic reorg, they might become their own program. And so if they do become their own program, such as GSWS, something like that, how does that particular program then get a representative? Because under the bylaws, that would be a program, and so that might merit an actual senator, even though there's only 1.5 FTE in that actual unit. So again, if it is under a division, and the divisions are more evenly spread as far as the total number of people and the number of Senate seats, that might be an optimal solution that we can address, or at least we can discuss. Any particular initial thoughts?
How many subdivisions actually have faculty in them? Or how many divisions, like the undergraduate?
Yes, you sound.
Okay, they all do, also.
All 7.
Could we, but the number of faculty is not the same across the divisions, right? I suggest we allocate seats according to the number of faculty in each division.
Okay.
from the different programs that now
Yeah.
make up that division.
I'm looking at the
correct?
bylaws and trying to figure out how many, with our 7 divisions, as many as 20 members should be elected by subdivisions. Unfortunately, that's a little shy of 21, which is integral division. Number of senators per division. And positions not allocated to subdivisions should be elected at large, and no fewer than 4 members of the Senate should be nominated and elected at large. So we've got to elect 4 at large, it means 20 maximum, so we can't get a good set of numbers yet.
For the 20, what you might look at is 6 of the divisions are relatively similar in size. And you have a small division that has USEM, and you have a small not division that is the library.
Not division.
So what you might want to have is 1 representative from the library, 1 representative from USEM, and then 3 representatives from each of the remaining 6 divisions, and that would add up to your 20. And that's similar to what we did with the old schools model.
Good.
Will that make it in the minutes so we can look at that? That sounds good. That material is in the minutes, I believe. Yeah, now it's here. I can resend out that proposal that we talked about. It was during that special session in November that we had, I believe.
Yeah, can you do that one?
Yes, I will resend that out so that we can continue this discussion unless there's more than anybody wants to talk about, and then move to the next item. Yes, Jim?
Just to be clear, since we're currently operating under the current bylaws, there's 10, 11 departmental seats turning over this year. So I have sent notices out to those individuals, some of you probably got emails from me. So the idea is that you can sort of find a replacement and notify me of that replacement. That's sort of a less formal way to do it, but it's okay for the departmental level seats. So those are out, so do we need to reel that back in, and are we planning on changing this?
No, I
mix
don't think so.
between now and then, or-
Even if we figure out how this is gonna get resolved by June 2, I mean, it wouldn't start really until the fall. And so at that point, then we could just assess how many,
Look at the configuration.
how well it overlaps, and then just kind of phase it out and phase it anew, starting in the fall.
Okay. So I've heard back from about 3 of the 10 or 11 emails, so it's just a little prompt.
So if we didn't hear from you, we're still on.
Okay.
It was right from 4.
Yeah, if you didn't hear from me, your term's still
Oh, that's
still going. But Lisa,
Not either one.
So, Dave, you spoke to it a little bit about grandfathering, and the transition is a, I'll call it an important issue, but it's an issue. The existing senators, I guess, we think will sit for whatever term they have. And if we do a new allocation, a new methodology about allocation, presumably it'll take effect at some point. You've just indicated that point is not spring, but that would make it next year.
Right, I don't see us having this all changed through the bylaws and making the election changes in the next month and a half. I don't see that happening.
I think my point is we need to think a little bit more, it's not just about doing the new allocation, but also how the transition will happen.
Okay.
We need an algorithm for that.
All right. No, that's a good point. You know, certainly, if we decide to go to a divisional setup, then we can assess who is in currently by program fitting into a division, and then what are the next steps as far as who gets phased out, and how do they get replaced by division versus by department. But certainly we can address that. Any other thoughts on this issue? Yes, Pete?
Did I understand that you and Jamie had gone over how the existing seats map to the new divisions?
So we talked about it a little bit, but I mean, we've made no decisions on that. I'm just saying we discussed that issue.
It's not
yeah.
spelled out anywhere and.
No.
Okay.
and we can,
Yeah, we can do that.
Sure.
If you accept a foreigner's assistance, I am willing to be a consultant to the Constitution Committee. If they want to talk to me about one of the 2 or 3 times I have done this.
Sure. Well, absolutely. That would be great. Any other comments about faculty representation distribution across divisions? Okay, so then the next piece is the bylaws update. So where to start as far as moving towards more of an academic reorganization model as far as all of the bylaws materials, because there's quite a few items in the bylaws that would need to change. Primary units, secondary units, P&T materials are gonna have to get updated, so all that stuff for the last couple of years that we've finally gotten finished, as far as promotion and tenure requirements, will now need to be retooled. Not major changes, but minor changes as far as the names. There's no extra layers, correct, as far as the promotion and tenure process, it's just changing the names within those. But that's certainly one of those items that typically both takes time and is very important to many faculty. And so maybe we want to figure out which part of this process as far as changing over to align with the newer academic reorg we want to start with. Are there any initial thoughts, comments?
I think the promotion and tenure aspect should be changed first, just because it would impact a number of faculty.
So this is going to be quite a bit of work for the Constitution Committee, and my understanding is right now it is 1, 2, 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Possibly 4 as a consultant, yes?
Well, what I was going to offer, Sue and I did a search and replace algorithm for the CBA to finish it, but just updated words, didn't change content, updated words. One or both of us probably would be willing to talk with the Constitution Committee about kind of the parameters we set. It was a relatively painless process. And that'll then spotlight where the actual changes need to go and might simplify the work of the Constitution Committee. This is not because I'm bored, but I really would like to help you out if you need it.
I'm happy to help as well.
And Kevin, as the webmaster, maybe get involved with them as far as how all that stuff gets mapped out on.
Sure.
Our side.
Yeah, I didn't help you get on that.
Any other particular components that you think are relatively important that we should start with? Again, I know this is going to be quite a bit of work for the three of you, and again, I don't see us finishing this in the next 3 Senate meetings, obviously. But it's something that we do need to start as far as a process. As we start to realign with the division model, we need to also get our bylaws up to date with that. Because there are some pieces within the bylaws that are actually from the old school model, like the faculty personnel committee is still aligned and elected via the schools, so the 05, 06 model. So again, just getting ourselves up to date. Hopefully we can at least figure out our process and get started on that process, by the next couple of meetings, and then we can finish our way through that process as we come back in the fall. Any other comments about that? It's a very, very happy bunch today. All right. The last item as far as discussion and information is a piece that we tabled last year, and now that we've kind of created some clarity and got some other major issues off of the plate, we can certainly come back and talk about it. And that is the concept of a position called a professor of practice. I think there's somebody in the room that is even very interested in this particular issue. But essentially, a professor of practice is an individual who takes on much of the roles and responsibilities of a professor without actually having the terminal degree, but they do have quite a bit of vast experience either in the field or in that particular niche material that they are teaching in. So it is kind of in between an instructor level, professional, and professorial level. Basically the same types of requirements as the professor with minus $2,000 for not having a terminal degree as far as how it would fit into the contract, the CBA. And in fact, it is currently in there as far as, or can be in there, because there is language in the current contract that allows for this if it does go forward. So again, because we were just bringing it back up So I wanted to get it out there, let people discuss it, talk about the issue. Kevin?
I had, I guess, a question, I don't know who I'm asking the question of even.
Sure.
But, so the same responsibilities as a professor, does that mean they have a service responsibility?
With my understanding, yes.
Does that mean they have a scholarship responsibility?
Actually, they do have a scholarship, but it's more an applied sort of like service where they would be working with an external business or an external organization of some kind.
So they have to interact with the community?
It's not theoretical research.
But I mean, we're kind of required to do that anyway at this point. That's why I'm sort of wondering if that would constitute the same amount of effort as a scholarship effort.
I think it's all how you put it. You have to look at the OAR and then translate that into how it would work for SOU. And you come up with your own criteria for that scholarship.
So it's defined somewhere already, the
Mhm.
professor
Yeah.
of practice?
Yeah, we can't, well, I guess we can in 2015, but for now we can't color outside the OARs.
Okay.
And this is one of those that was just approved maybe 2 years ago. It's been only and it came from folks that have a lot of folks that don't have terminal degrees that teach in technical fields like engineering or business like that.
So what would be the difference between the professional track, professor of practice?
My understanding would be lower EOU per year, and increase.
For the professor of practice?
For the professor of practice would be aligned with the professor or professorial line. So pretty much all of that material, whereas the instructor doesn't have as much, or doesn't have the scholarship component, or service to a certain degree. The professor of practice would be more aligned with the professorial track. And again, this, that's something that we would define, I think, after looking at those OARs and say, yes, this is how.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering about the sort of the qualifications of that person versus, I think you clearly delineated their expectations, but what about their qualifications? How would they be different?
Well, as far as.
I can speak to
Yeah.
that. Yeah, the idea would be these are people with significant industry experience. So, whereas an instructor may have more of an academic background, folks in the professor of practice would be more from industrial backgrounds. So, whether it's in business or whatever their particular industry was that brought them to the academic environment.
Jerry?
When it was first discussed, the initial discussions were around the idea that that person would have a professorial teaching load, but would have a very clear and fairly heavy external service area. So right now, a professor is not required to have service outside of the campus, but this person would have a significant professional service component, likely tied with the community. So it could be somebody in education who's doing a lot of work with the schools, and that would be then their tie, kind of replacing the scholarship component.
So would could somebody be promoted from a professional track to a professional
Be a reappointment.
professor of practice? Would that be a promotional move for them?
I don't know if it's a career path. It would probably be, at the application point is when you make the decision between professorial, professor of practice, or instructor. But yes, there probably are folks on the campus that would qualify to be
Yeah, so I was
a
thinking.
professor. of
Right now,
practice.
switching tracks requires reappointment, but we've done that.
Because I can think of some people probably that would qualify for what you just described as a professor of practice, whereas maybe they're currently on a professional track.
Yeah, the biggest lobbies I was getting was from education and from business, where they had people that were in professional tracks that really, they felt were more appropriately professor of practice.
Curtis?
This might be too far ahead, maybe for Jim or Sherry. Do you have any idea how this would fit in with promotion and tenure? Like instructors fit so neatly where you just say, well, less of this, minus the scholarship. Would this require a new document, do you think, or there'd be a way to say, for professor practice, there must be heavier external service or something? I'm just curious. Have you thought about that at all?
I would assume that there would be a complete different category with its own set of criteria.
Okay.
So that wasn't what we had originally talked about, but it could be quite possible. The thought was that it would have a lower scholarship component, higher service component, and those would be
Maybe a way to
delineated, kind of
use
like
this.
we did with instructors.
Maybe a
now.
way to use the same document that specified levels within or something. That's something we would address. That's down the line.
Can teach graduate courses, it will all depend on what their qualifications are.
So I would certainly get those OERs, send them out to you all so that you can see how that line looks. I know there's quite a few different ones across the 7 institutions right now, not just, our instructor two, and professor levels. There are other ones, and this is included in that professor practice, senior lecturer or research lecturer.
Professor.
Yeah, there's quite a few ones across the universities. If we wanted to incorporate this one, we would take that as a starting point. Right.
Would you mind if I just said a couple? So for you, those of you who don't know, I'm Brian Stunlake, and to be perfectly transparent, this is personal to me, so I'll try not to be too self-serving with my comments. 2 things I didn't hear mentioned. I think this is a very natural fit given our house model, and I don't think that gets mentioned as much as maybe it should. I could see somebody with industry experience being very beneficial to one or multiple houses that maybe we could offer them a more lucrative package than we're currently able to with this new position. The second one that I wanted to mention is, last time this was mentioned in Senate, it was phrased as another menu item, which I thought was a great way to present it. I think that I understand some people's trepidations with it, but I think when you think about it in that sense, that anytime a new position's gone out, there's already gonna be discussion on whether it should be an instructor or professor, or this just gives us another option somewhere in between. And the natural thought is, instead of instructor, we can offer this professor of practice, we can offer a more lucrative package, and therefore it's better. But that's not necessarily always the case. I think going in the other direction can be beneficial financially speaking. One point that I don't think was made, and if I understand it correctly, is a professor of practice would teach more than a professor currently does. I think it was 9 as opposed to 8 classes a year is what you had told me.
We all do 9, it would be 9. It's gonna be the same.
I thought it was currently 332 and it would be 333.
We all do 333.
Wouldn't that be nice?
443 for an instructor.
Right.
We do 333.
I see. I thought it was 332
Good
currently.
idea.
Let's try that.
Nice try. The other one is, maybe I'm wrong again here. This person would not be eligible for tenure and for sabbaticals, which I don't know the finance behind that, but I imagine there's pretty large costs associated with it. Someone's sabbatical. Is that
I don't recall it being sabbatical prohibited, but I do recall it being tenure prohibited. I have to look up the OARs.
Yeah, I think the ORs will tell you that.
So maybe I only have 1 point, not 2 points. Maybe I should have stopped talking 5 minutes ago, so I'll stop there. Thanks for listening.
So as it is just a discussion item, I will track down those OERs, try and get out some more information either from the recollection from last year before it was set on the table, and then put this OER material with it, and then we can have a more formalized discussion about it at the next assembly. All right then. The last item up for bids is the action item, the amendments to the bylaws for senior instructor 2 that the Constitution Committee, put forward and we discussed at last Senate meeting. And then I did say to the when I sent out the material, had requests for individual faculty to have a discussion with their senator, had they had any issues to talk about or raise or bring up about this very minor amendment to the bylaws. Was there any material or discussion points that were brought to your attention, or edits or comments?
I didn't receive anything. You received?
Nope.
Didn't think so. Well, if there are no discussion or comments, I would certainly entertain a motion to approve said amendments for the bylaws.
Yes,
Okay,
make a motion.
all righty. Is there a second? Carol? Slow on the draw. All right, any final comments about the changes to senior instructor 2 to amend the bylaws? All right, then, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. All right, so I have a little bit of homework, and I will try to get this done in the next couple of days and get it out to you. And if
Oh,
there
I
is.
thought you meant homework for us.
No, it's me, it's all me. But actually, you know what, I'm just gonna hand it off to Garth, right? If there's nothing else, then this concludes, 557. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dave.
Are you gonna go get a margarita?
Easy fast.
Oh,